Welcome back, fellow traveler. I hope you're having a good day. I know I am. If you're in the middle of planning some travel and you might be going to a faraway place that needs a connection or two, we should talk about what airports you need to avoid. There are quite a few big airports that run into significant delays or other issues that you may encounter that you might want to steer clear from. So we'll go over that right now. It's 3 airports, and I'm only limited to 3 because after a while it just gets redundant, and really then it's like avoid all big airports, which is impossible to do. But these 3 airports, I feel, if given the option, or if there's another airport that serves these areas that you're going to, you might want to look into them, and I'll give you some alternatives too. So without further ado, let's jump in. First one is London. So London Heathrow Airport is a big airport. It's a big hub where a lot of people connect to the rest of Europe or the rest of the UK. The problem with this airport isn't so much operations, it's that it's going to cost you a lot of extra money to fly in and out of Heathrow. The duties and fees and airport improvement fees and all that stuff that gets thrown in there is in British pounds. And if you're coming from a country that doesn't have favorable exchange rates, it's going to end up costing you more than, let's say, connecting through some of the other European cities like Frankfurt, Paris. Paris is a kind of like a honorable mention to avoid. I'm not going to touch too deep into Paris, other than say that what you should do, where you should be connected into, is either Copenhagen, but more or less Frankfurt. Frankfurt is a huge hub. It goes to the rest of the world. If you need to go to Africa, if you need to go to the Middle East, if you need to go to Asia. Asia is kind of a bit weird depending on where you're leaving from, because you'd probably go the other way if you're leaving from North America. And of course, if you are in Europe or you're in Africa or you're anywhere else and looking to get into North America, it's also a really good hub. The fees are a lot less in terms of that, and the airport is run fairly well. I've connected out of Frankfurt a few times, no issues, good experience. Great lounge if you're part of Star Alliance. The Lufthansa lounge for international departures is really good, so consider that. I did mention Copenhagen is a really good one too. A lot of people these days going from North America are also going to Reykjavik in Iceland. It's a huge connecting point for a lot of people. That might be something you want to look at. The second airport that I'm going to talk to you about is New York, specifically JFK, but really extends to the 3 major airports, JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, that leave out of that area. It's just like there's so much air traffic flying into that area, and with snow delays, weather like rain, thunderstorms, it takes just a few drops of rain to really shut down that airport. And then what happens when you shut down that airport is when it kicks back up, you then have all the planes that have been flying around ready to go back in, and it just snowballs and delays everything. So I would avoid New York and the New York area for that reason alone. It's really easy for them to hit a bump in the road, considering the amount of traffic that just flies in and out of the area. It's not just the airport, it's like all the helicopters, it's all the airspace that gets just occupied and congested so easily in the New York area. So keep that in mind when traveling through there. What I would do as an alternative is flying to Toronto if you're able to. I wouldn't really worry about passing customs. If you are going from the United States to Europe and you're going through Toronto, you do have to pass customs to get into Canada, but you don't line up with the rest of the folks. There is a connections area that you just have to go through. You don't really need to spend that much time in customs. Sure, it's a pain in the butt. If you connect in New York or Atlanta or Dallas, wherever you'd want to connect into, might be a less hassle if the whole operation is running smooth, but you do run the risk of not getting into a smooth operation. Most days, especially in New York, are fraught with delays just because of the volume. So there you go. That's number 2. I do highly recommend Toronto. Like, you don't have to fly Air Canada. I know there's a lot of Air Canada haters in Canada and in the United States. I personally love Air Canada. Disclaimer, I used to work for them, but I understand the way the operations act within Air Canada, and people get the passengers out on time as close as possible. But there are a ton of airlines that fly in and out of Toronto, not just Air Canada, so do keep that in mind. The third and the last airport that I'm going to mention is Beijing, but really all of China, and I would even include Shanghai as probably the worst out of the ones. Just the on-time departure for that is horrendous. On-time departures for Chinese airports are just notoriously in flux. We'll put it that way. And the reason for that is, again, air traffic. A lot of air traffic, a lot of people going in and out of China. So there's a lot of passenger aircraft that just go and flood the zone, and they don't cite weather delays normally in China. It's usually air traffic control. So that could be anything. We don't really know what the nature of all the delays are when they say air traffic control. It could really be anything. A lot of people, face 5+ hour delays on the regular out of the major Chinese airports. As alternatives, I would suggest either Narita, so Tokyo, Singapore. Singapore, one of my top airports. I loved Singapore. Or even Bangkok if you really need to fly in and out of Southeast Asia. That's also another area. These are 3 airports that run really, really well. I highly recommend checking those airports out. Now, depending on what your situation is like, maybe the airports that I've listed don't service everywhere you need to go. If you need absolutely to fly into the 3 airports that I mentioned, just anticipate delays. Anticipate, mitigate, give yourself a longer connection if you need be. I know it's really cool to jump off one plane and jump right into another, but that's how you're going to run into issues down the line. You will eventually get caught, holding the bag, so to speak, with your missed connection. So you don't want that. Go with a lower volume airport if you can, and be mindful of whatever additional fees that you are incurring. So there you have it. That's my list. What airport would you avoid at all costs? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for making me a part of your day. If you want to check out some of my other videos, you can do that right there. And if you'd like to subscribe, really helps the channel out. You can do that right there. Thanks a lot, and until next time, safe travels.